What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Drake's Takes. I am your host, Drake Riggs, your resident MMA media hipster. And that is what this show is all about. Me talking about the things that I want to talk about that have been relevant in the recent times and, are a little bit more out there and not so mainstream. So likely to be less UFC stuff. This idea for the show and me just talking about whatever I feel like, essentially, originally stemmed from, when I moved to China, what was that, 2 years or so ago now, and, kind of dropped all of this stuff that I'm doing again, and, just wanted something to still relieve my MMA needs. But we're bringing it back here. The revival, Drake's Takes on the Body Lock now. Gonna talk about all that fun stuff that interests me maybe a little bit more than the regular stuff that all the casuals are into. So if you're here visiting and checking things out, appreciate it greatly. Like, share, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content that we're regularly putting out. And if you're interested in this series that we will likely be doing, even though I really don't like talking to myself and being alone, just makes me all that much more of the perfect guy to do this, though, right? And be that hipster position that we are in. So that's just how it's going to be. Gonna just roll right off the cuff and real random, you guys. So, of course, just to have some type of structure, I will fill you in to the lineup of sorts and where we will be going throughout the session today here, you guys. Recording on March 19th, of course, so you have a little bit of a perspective of what is going on at this time. And of course, judging by the topics, you can tell as well. So today we're going to be looking at the matchup that was officially announced now by Bellator between Patrick Patchy Mix and James Gallagher for Bellator 258. That'll be taking place on, excuse me here, April 7th. So that is coming up very shortly on the same card as Juan Archuleta and Sergio Pettis. We will be starting with that topic, of course. And then, you guys, I'm looking to really get into this, One Empower, One Championship doing their first all women's card, which that's a pretty cool thing and a pretty big deal for a promotion that is not exclusively women, like Invicta or Deep Jewels, for example. And the tournament that is going down, the World Grand Prix, the biggest women's, the greatest and bestest tournament of all time, as Chatri would say, right? Or however he coined it. We will get into that. And then, of course, also on that card, there is a title fight that is going completely under the radar, despite it being the main event. So, got to give that some love, of course. And coming up this weekend on Saturday night, Sunday morning for most people in the States, it is RIZIN 27 time, you guys. RIZIN is back. First show of 2021. Cannot wait. It feels like it's been forever since the New Year's Eve show, RIZIN 26. But we are back. No worries. Live from Nagoya. There will be English commentary once again. No Frank Trigg this time. But we got Johnny Case, which will be very fun. He'll be joining Joe Ferraro. RIZIN 27, March 21st. Pat and I will bring you the intermission show right here on the channel once again. And that is expected to take place between the 9th and the 10th fight, I believe. I have the lineup here right now. Yes, I'm pretty sure that is when it is targeted to be. So that'll be after Taiga's fight with Kanta Motoyama. Excuse me. Got to get my pronunciations right. What is wrong with me? So, yes, we will be looking at RIZIN 27 and kind of not so much previewing and not so much making predictions or anything like that, because anybody can do that. Here on this show, I'm going to be kind of taking out little kind of aspects. And, I like stories. I generally like to think of myself as a decent storyteller. And that's something I just like to do in general with my writing and my work here in the MMA media space. But we're going to kind of focus on those parts of that event and some of the storylines that are going to be mapped out for the rest of 2021, starting with this event, because there's some roots here and some foundation to be laid for the remainder of the year. We will look at that. And then last but not least, we will kind of have some UFC talk. I'm not excluding it completely, but I just wanted to get that out of the way early on to say that most likely there won't be a lot of UFC talk on this show, but there is some related topics that I would like to discuss, which involve the odds, the betting odds, and some how that stuff's all going, um, in regards to a matchup or two, or some recent ones lately that are kind of ridiculous. So I won't give any spoilers away aside from what I just said there before we get into it. But all right, you guys, might as well get this show on the road. Enough intro of sorts for y'all. For y'all, here we go. Right, let's get into it. Bellator 258 coming up here in a matter of weeks, starting off April. A fantastic lineup of events that they have and fights that are coming in April. April is just a loaded month for MMA in general, really. And why I wanted to talk about Patchy Mix and Josh Gallagher. Geez, I'm all over the place right now. I saw Josh Hill's name, which another fantastic fight. Josh Hill and Rafion Stotts. Man, Bellator, it's just nice to have them back, huh? After a little break of their own. Excuse me. So Patchy Mix and James Gallagher, why this was something that kind of stood out to me and something that I felt needed to be highlighted is because, James Gallagher has been clearly a little bit of a project or experiment. I don't know if that's even fair to say. He's been a guy who has clearly been hyped, right? He's been one of the, not the Paige Van Zants or the Sage Northcutts of Bellator, even though that's probably fair to say. He's been a guy who they've built up very well, and they want to build into a superstar. Very brash personality, has the Conor McGregor connection. Of course, it all makes plenty of sense. It makes sense that they would want to do this, right? And build this guy up the way that they have so far. And, they've done a pretty good job of it, but that's not to say that he isn't a very skilled guy, James Gallagher, because he very much is that. He's just not quite Conor McGregor. And it is silly to assume or make somebody out to be Conor McGregor because there's clearly only one of him, as we've seen, recently, just to get really, if you want to get very, I don't know, more hardcore or hipsterish, because that is the theme of this show, as I'm going to ram that home. All my colleagues have done that as well. So I'm going to ride this one out, you guys. But there was that fighter who looked very much like Conor McGregor, not just in his appearance, but his what did you call it? The way he kind of carried himself. I'm totally blanking on the word. His mannerisms, sort of, the way that he was kind of doing the arm thing, and then he ended up getting knocked out. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about if you saw it or follow the Twitter MMA sphere very much. So yeah, often imitated, never replicated is kind of the thing with Conor McGregor. And what I'm getting at here, James Gallagher, though, is pretty much Bellator's Conor McGregor nonetheless, right? So here he is taking on Patchy Mix, who is absolutely an incredibly legit fighter, a very legitimate bantamweight, one of the best in the world. The bantamweight division is just absolutely incredible worldwide. And this guy is coming off of his first career loss, which was to the champion, the now champion, Juan Archuleta, who beat him to become champion. That is Patrick Mix's only career loss, which tells you kind of all you need to know about him if you haven't seen his career prior to that, which is very impressive in its own right. And he is a very good fighter. But James Gallagher has been protected a little bit, similar case to MVP Michael Venom Page, of course, but not at the same extent. I think he's probably, well, yeah, they're pretty similar, but MVP's is kind of in a realm of its own with its ridiculousness, I would say. But James Gallagher, a guy who has been built up, of course, propped up as this next superstar, still only 24 years old, so plenty of growing still to do, and he has beaten some good guys, right? That's what I was getting at. Chinzo Machida, of course, Lyoto Machida's brother. But when was put in that spot to take on a guy who also a very legitimate bantamweight, but kind of we didn't know exactly how good Ricky Bandejas was just yet. He was still at that time of the fight with James Gallagher, a very legit and dangerous fighter that was being overlooked because, of course, James Gallagher had all this hype. He was still undefeated at that point. And then Ricky goes out there and very much embarrasses him. Just to be totally honest about it, we've all seen that fight, I'm sure, especially if you're here checking out this show. So yeah, now taking on Patrick Mix is his second toughest test of his career in terms of, if you're going to line up both Ricky Bandejas and Patrick Mix, these are the two most legit fighters that he has fought to this point. Patrick Mix, though, is better than Ricky Bandejas. That is absolutely fair to say, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, I mean, that is absolutely fair to say because Patrick Mix did beat Ricky Bandejas. He choked him out in the first round, only 66 seconds. That was incredibly impressive. Almost forgot about that. So, and I mean, Mix, man, the guy, just scrolling over his record real quick here, I forget how many finishes he has in the submissions. I mean, I'm well aware of the submissions because he has that Yuki Matoya one, also very quick. That guillotine, it's not often you see Yuki Matoya defeated that way, especially by submission. Isaiah Chapman there, a Sulev stretch. Patrick Mix has a Sulev stretch on his record. That is ridiculous. You don't ever see that very often, of course. And yeah, you just go down the line. He doesn't go to decision very often. And now taking on James Gallagher, who is also a very good submission artist. But again, you got to look at the level of competition here, which is why this is such a it's not a huge step up for James anymore, I don't think, but it is definitely a step up and will be telling of if if Bellator is rushing him into this spot, not again like they did with Ricky, because that one was a little bit, fair, but here we are. You can't put somebody against these guys who are significantly or clearly layups or lower level than them and expect them to beat, very high quality guys as soon as you throw them there. So we will see if he's ready for that. And that's why this is so interesting. And especially because of the fact that the main event is the bantamweight title fight between Archuleta and Sergio Pettis. So if James Gallagher goes in and pulls this off against the guy who just lost in the title fight, you have to give James Gallagher the title fight. And he'll probably call for it, especially if he finishes Patrick Mix. So that would probably be best case scenario for Bellator. They would love that, to give this guy a title shot finally, and one that you could justify by beating Patrick Mix, which he would only be the second person to do so. And on the same card, it's like a mini unofficial bantamweight tournament, which Bellator loves the tournaments. So, but then even like I mentioned, Rafion Stutz, Josh Hill, do not sleep on that fight. We got 3 great bantamweight fights so far on tap for this one, at least on Tapology here. And I could just be blanking on the other ones because, I'm a very scatterbrained these days, but we're still making time to chat about this stuff, you guys. So appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Got to throw that in there. All right. So I think that is probably about all I kind of want to say about that matchup. Without going into detail about breakdowns or who I think will win and what have you, you can maybe guess just off of what I have said already, but I don't feel like going into that kind of stuff. That's not why I'm here right now. So that's just what you get with Drake's Takes, right? Giving you my thoughts on these things. So we will move on to the ladies now. Gotta love it. Of course, if you know me and we're getting some MMA talk, gotta talk about the women. And of course, ONE Championship doing something very, very special, something very, very important, I think. ONE Empower taking place on May 28th. Yes, May 28th. All women's card. The entire card will be made up of the female fighters, which I can't think of a time that there has been a promotion has done that isn't exclusively a female promotion. Invicta, Deep Jewels, like I said, even Hook and Shoot back in the day, they don't have men competing for them. So ONE Championship obviously has a whole lot of fighters in multiple sports, but for this one, they're going all in on this. And why not when you're having it showcase your very good and very exciting tournament that you're putting on in your best division, your best female division, right? So I think they're doing this right, and it is going to be very interesting to see if anybody wants to follow suit, see how this does. They have a lot of name value and star power among their females, and especially these ones that they're putting in and investing in here with this card. So what we're going to have is a total of, we have 5 fights on it right now, and we'll be getting 3 more, 2 of which will be alternate bouts for the tournament. And then 1 more is expected to be a major. I think that was the phrase used in the release from ONE to ESPN, I believe it was. So yeah, in total we will have excuse me, 5 plus 3, 8. 8 total fights. One not doing too many big cards these days in terms of size. Pre-pandemic, they had some very large cards, but for this one, going all out with the ladies and doing things right. And first of all, the highlight of it is clearly, as I mentioned, the tournament, the Atomweight Grand Prix, World Grand Prix, Atomweight in ONE. Always have to remind you that it is up a weight division. So despite it being called Atomweight, it is 115 pounds, which is straw weight in the normal world, not the ONE Kingdom or whatever you would like to call it. So 115-pound tournament. Man, it is some good stuff, you guys. Of course, let's go through the matchups here real quick, not to get too deep into them, but just to list them out. Sohee, one of the greatest atomweights of all time. 1 and 2. It's 1A and 1B. Her and Ayaka Hamasaki. Take your pick there, however you'll have it. Sohee coming in, the most recent RIZIN atomweight champion until Ayaka just recently won the title back. She'll be taking on Denise Sambawanga, who is 8-0. Of course, the number 1 ranked contender, I believe, in the ONE Championship rankings. That is going to be a very good matchup. Sohee, I guess if I'm going to put any predictions out there, she absolutely should win this because she is the best fighter, hands down, in the tournament and the most experienced. You name it, been there, done that. Sohee she's just very, very good. One of the best fighters in the world overall. And then, of course, the rematch between Stamp Fairtex and Alyona Rasohina. Of course, Pat, OJ, and I did the little bit of the reflection on the craziness of that Hail Mary victory by Rasohina, which that is the only reason she's in the tournament, if we're going to be totally honest. Not to say that she isn't a good dark horse or a good sleeper. I would love to see the odds on her chances to win because I would imagine she's probably least likely to win. But boy, what a story that would be. And that's the fun of tournaments. Anything can happen, right? As many people say. So, of course, had to run that back. There's no way they were not putting Stamp in the tournament. Rasohina just cashed her ticket by securing that literally last second, somewhat controversial submission over Stamp in the first fight a month ago, or whenever that was. My concept of time is lost these days, you guys. And then on the other side of the bracket, I should say, Sohee and Denise Sambawanga, winner of that will face Rasohina / Fairtex, whoever wins that rematch. And then on the other side, we got Mengbo representing China taking on India's Ritu Phogat. So that is a very good matchup as well. Very interesting styles clash. And then the other side of that, or the matchup that will take on the winner of that one, Itsuki Hirata versus Elise Anderson, representing America, coming in from Invicta, of course. If you remember, Elise Anderson has a flying triangle on her record. She got that in one of her more recent fights. So, and taking on Itsuki Hirata, who there's a lot of support for this gal. And, she is a very, very good prospect, very young, very talented, but still very unproven in level of competition. She still has a lot more to prove. So I'm very surprised to see how much faith people have in her and going either to the finals or winning it all. That is a bit bold to me, because I think that the clear two front runners should probably be, well, easily Sohee and then Mengbo on the other side. That is my prediction for the finals. I know that's lame because they're the most experienced fighters and probably the most likely candidates to end up against each other. But I'm just gonna call it how I see it, you guys. So that is the Atomweight Grand Prix coming up there. But what we're going to talk about specifically is the fact that this tournament is being highlighted the way that it is and how much attention it appears to be getting, at least on social media. And like I said, so many Itsuki supporters and fans, who are backing her. And a lot of people seem interested in this, and rightfully so, because, Angela Lee, of course, the champion, the one Atomweight champion, the youngest champion in MMA history, won the belt at 19, of course, out because of her pregnancy at the moment. And, the winner of this will go on to fight her. So I think there's a lot of buzz in seeing a new matchup for Angela Lee. And then just the tournament in general gets people excited. And the thing that we're going to highlight here is, I guess it is UFC related. I mentioned that earlier, how things weren't going to be, but everybody these days is doing tournaments except for the UFC. And with the continued, you know, level of desire, I guess you could say, for promotions getting in on tournaments, doing tournaments, it isn't slowing down. I will tell you that much, just from what is out there publicly, and from what I know behind the scenes. Uh, Tournaments are a thing that are being, I don't want to say revived necessarily, because we've gotten tournaments recently in recent years, of course, with Bellator specifically in the stateside, and then Invicta has been doing their Phoenix series tournaments um, as recently as 2019, and I don't think they did any last year because last year was crazy, of course. But yeah, tournaments are all the rage, you guys. Everybody likes to see a good old tournament, how things are laid out and what have you, except for the UFC. The UFC is not too fond of that, which is really funny considering how they started, right? It's like, don't want to go back to olden times, even though everybody else is jumping on to it and everybody loves it. And it's just tradition. It is tradition in all sports, right? That's the foundation of how sports generally work. But it makes me wonder if, because the UFC, they're not ignoring everything completely, like shutting out the rest of the world just because they're the top dogs. People do see, and especially the fighters, what is going on with the other promotions, and how much people, not just fans, but the fighters, enjoy tournaments and what have you. It makes you wonder, like, will the UFC eventually cave into this? And I think it would take. I feel like, with seeing how much buzz is surrounding this one atomweight tournament finally happening, especially for the women, like, how do you not at least consider it? And when people bring it up, especially with the lightweight situation recently, which we have gotten cleared up for the most part now, with Habib officially retiring and vacating the belt, Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira, of course. Um, Still, it is something that is just so much of an option in so many cases, especially in a promotion which does so many champion versus champion fights in recent years, right? Where that opens the door for things to, kind of play out, at least in the time being, if needed. I mean, just off the top of my head, of course, that probably doesn't make too much sense, but it's like, if they were to do tournaments, it's not like it wouldn't be successful. Like, they're smart enough to figure out ways to do it differently than everybody else, or what have you, to to stand out differently, because I feel like that might be a reason that they aren't into tournaments and doing flashy entrances and all of this stuff that everybody else is doing and all the audiences enjoy, but they want to be different and kind of the not the vanilla product, but they're the top dogs. So I guess they don't feel that they have to be doing all these cool things that we really like to see. And, I don't know. It's just, it's very interesting to see how everybody else is having great success with this idea that isn't new. It's not a new, doing tournaments, but, you know, the top guys with all the best fighters, for the most part, of course, you can't deny that, that they just don't want to get back into that business. So I'm sure, again, that we will see it at some point, whether a new division is introduced or whatever. And the Ultimate Fighter is a tournament, so that's an excuse right there as well. But aside from that, you guys, what is being completely overshadowed in all of this tournament talk is the main event of One Empower, which is, the flyweight title fight, um, which is actually, or excuse me, strawweight title fight but is 125 pounds in ONE Championship. The Panda is back. Zhang Jingnan, China's very first MMA champion ever. It wasn't Weili, just to inform everybody who might not have known, the first in the UFC, but Panda holds that record for everybody across the board. She is back defending her title against Michelle Nicolini, who is the only other woman to have defeated Angela Lee. That being these two competing against each other are the only ones to have done that. Yeah, I mean, the Panda coming back is a big deal and headlining, but she's not the big story. It's kind of just great. That goes to show that much more how much people are interested in this tournament and including the promotion themselves. Like the promotion is much more in on the tournament than the title fight, which is fair. It is fair. I love Panda, and I'm all for supporting her and watching her fight. She is always fun to watch. Gangster like performer when she is in there, and taking on Nicolini, who is she's got the win in her last fight against Angela Lee, but it's getting to the point of scraping the bottom. That sounds really aggressively rude, kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel, but Panda's just starting to clear out the division is kind of the thing that I'm getting at here. And Nicolini, she is a very, very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, 6-2 record, 39 years old. So, likely at the end of this run here and her final and first push for a title, see what she can do against Panda, who has had some questionable moments on the ground, but been all right for the most part, aside from the Angela Lee loss in the rematch, of course. But yeah, this is an important fight for Panda in regards to what do you do after this? Like I don't know if we will get an Angela Lee trilogy fight at some point, and I'm not just because of them not wanting to fight each other again, but because of the fact that whoever wins this tournament, likely so he going on to potentially dethrone Angela Lee. So then that takes it away completely, and then there's a good option for Panda to try and get her dual division status as champion back again, and not back, but to make that happen, because that's what they were fighting for originally. Which, man, if you guys have not seen Zhang Jingnan versus Angela Lee, both of those fights are two of the greatest fights of all time. No joke. So good. Those two are meant to fight each other. I hope we get a trilogy at some point, even if there's no belts involved. But yeah, so that is how that is looking, and that fight definitely deserves some recognition because it's Panda. That's mainly the thing. No disrespect to Nicolini, and she should make things interesting in certain moments, but of course you got to favor the champ in this one, and she's the main event. She's a history maker and making more history on this all women's card, which I know I kind of glossed over that a little bit more than I would have liked to, but will this push or open the eyes of other promotions, inspire them to maybe do an all female card? Like, I know people have wondered about the UFC doing that for years, like, of course, since they brought in the women in the first place, but with ONE doing this and generating a lot of interest in it, and I know that we can argue how much of the interest is real. I'm not gonna sugarcoat things with you guys here. uh there's some questionable tactics. We all know this. I don't need to say it, but there is definitely still real interest. So depending on how the results turn out, which I cannot see it. I can't see it not being successful and interesting. The fighters all involved, they're just too good, and the matchups are too exciting to where this doesn't pan out good, and maybe inspire some others to do the same, especially non-UFC organizations that will be willing to do tournaments. Because if the UFC was to do something like this and it not be a tournament, then you have the argument of maybe stalling and holding up divisions, right? Even though they have three and a half divisions, 3.1 divisions. We're not going to count featherweight as a full or even a half division here. Sorry. All right, moving on. Moving on. Let's carry on to the real meat and potatoes of the episode. Not necessarily, but it's been a very long day trying to move through this, but still enjoying the time, you guys. Remember, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. I'm going to throw that in. I know it might not be what Pat does on his show, Fight Business Podcast, but I'm doing it here. We're just rolling off the cuff, like I said. And don't forget to check out that podcast as well, Fight Business. Good stuff with Mr. Pat Auger, Frat Pat, as we call him, Stat Pat. He's all over the place as well these days. All right. RIZIN 27 is this weekend, you guys. This weekend at the time of recording. So March 21st, RIZIN 27, first show for the promotion of 2021. Very good card once again. Some very good matchups, some very good debuts happening. Lots of interesting debuts. So we're not going to get into too many specifics, as I mentioned off the top, but let's look at what exactly this event could lead to and where things the roads could be taken, what is outlined potentially here with some of these matchups in particular. And we're going to look at down the card here. Let's start from bottom, working our way up to top. So of course, kicking things off, we got 3 kickboxing matches early on after the opening flyweight MMA bout between Yuki Ito and Kohei Sugiyama. But as we climb here, let's just do this overall. In total, we have 1, 2. Okay, only 2. I thought there was going to be more than that. 2 bantamweight bouts on the card. And why is this worth mentioning? Well, because of the fact that the bantamweight division, as I said, incredible right now. Worldwide, I think the best division in MMA, period, across the board. RIZIN this year planning to do a 16-man, you want to go full circle here to what we just talked about, a 16-man bantamweight tournament featuring, I believe, primarily Japanese fighters, because that is mostly what they're working with under the current world circumstances. So 16-man tournament at bantamweight. So that means everybody's going to be looking to get in there. And kicking off the card in that division, Shuto Watanabe versus Takumi Tamaru. Takumi Tamaru, this is a guy who's coming in, a lot of hype, very good prospect, a very exciting guy. And I did speak with him ahead of this matchup, and, he is a very unique individual and still very young. I believe 24, 25, and taking on somebody like Shuto Watanabe, who has a significant experience edge over him. But, this is one of those cases where I don't know if you would say there is an A side this early, as we're going back to talking about James Gallagher and all that, but there's a clear side that would be maybe more fun, especially to promote and have in a tournament. And a guy who is interested in doing that. I did ask Takumi if he would, if he wins in this matchup in the debut, of course, that is ideal. That would be great. Then go on to compete in the tournament, win your way through that, ideally, once again. But yeah, he's interested in doing that. So I think that is going to be the case for both of these matchups, and Watanabe as well. If he wins, he's going to want to get in the tournament afterwards also, because, you win your way through that. Then you're looking at Kyoji Horiguchi. You have to go through all these guys in this incredible, 16-man tournament. You earn yourself a title shot. Kind of just how it works when it's that big and crazy. It's like Dragon Ball Z, right? I don't remember what that one was called, but that was always good fun. The big tournament episodes, I remember from back in the day, if you guys watched Dragon Ball Z. Now I'm getting real off the rails with the Drake's takes, you guys. But yeah, so the point is, people will be contending for the tournament spots here. And that is a brief outline, see who could be likely to land in that. Because right now we have a couple of ideas of some guys who will probably be in there. Naoki Inoue, who arguably should be getting the next title shot. He won very impressively on New Year's Eve defeating Yuki Matoya, who I mentioned earlier, against Patrick Mix, who has fought Patrick Mix. But there are some names that we know can probably expect to see in the tournament in the meanwhile. But then there's, with that many numbers of bodies, 16, you gotta think about, okay, who could we possibly see in there? And what is more realistic is some guys who are going to be freshly in the minds of people and performing on the RIZIN stage and getting impressive performances, which could come from either of these bouts between Kazuma Sone and Hiroki Yamashita, and then of course Shuto Watanabe and Takumi Tamaru. So yeah, that is one little mapping out road path that we can see coming out of this one, leading into something down the line, the bantamweight tournament 100%. And then also it sounds like there's probably going to be a featherweight one as well. I don't think 16 man for that. I would have to go back and check the notes. I don't have literal notes here for that, but just recent things that Saki Gabara has shared in press conference and what have you. I believe there is the intention of doing a featherweight tournament. Pretty sure it's not 16 man, but either way, yeah, that's also a possibility there where, Tetsuya Seki versus Yoshinori Hori, who is following up both of those bantamweight bouts. Winner of that fight could definitely find themselves slotted in there. And Yoshinori Hori specifically also spoke with him ahead of this fight. Former UFC fighter, only had the one fight against Hakeem Dawodu. Yeah, one and done for him. You don't really see that very often. So that was surprising to see him get cut after one loss. And he did explain that to me when I spoke to him on Broad Horizon. Go check that out. Shameless plug for my own show. Conflicting on channels here. I know I'm going to get in trouble by the boss man. Apologies, but hey, that's what we're doing. We're going off the rails, sort of. So it is late. Leave me alone, you guys. We're having fun here. So yeah, Yoshinori Hori and Seki could be also competing for tournament spot unofficially, but it just makes all too much sense for that kind of to be the case. And then you continue to look up the ladder here. Kleber Koike Herbst, former KSW champion, taking on Kazumasa Majima. Kleber, fantastic debut, RIZIN debut in his last fight at RIZIN 26, New Year's Eve. He's a guy who 1,000,000%, if he wins this, he's got to be in the tournament, or he could be title shot worthy, but it sounds like we will probably get, or it doesn't sound like, I don't remember hearing anything specifically about the Mikuru Asakura versus Yutaka Saito rematch for the featherweight title, but I think it's pretty safe to assume that will happen next, unless RIZIN wants to put Saito in the tournament with the belt on the line. That would be cool. I think that would be a good idea. But probably more likely that we would see the title fight rematch happen while a contender is sorted out in the tournament, because RIZIN will do their tournaments multiple fights in a single night, which makes things go a lot faster than, let's say, a Bellator, which is fun. I like it that way. And ONE Championship is not doing it that way, just to clarify and specify with that again. So yeah, winner of that fight absolutely is going to find themselves slotted into that featherweight tournament. No doubt about it. So, and then we continue to climb up the card. Koji Takeda versus Taksuke Kume, the deep lightweight champ versus the Pancrase lightweight champ. Gotta love it. This is a matchup that we were guaranteed to see. There was no way we weren't going to see it. Koji Takeda coming off of his win over the Shuto champ, Yuki Kawana. I believe that was his last fight. Pretty sure. Either way, we knew that this revolving trifecta of champions were going to fight each other at some point here in RIZIN. And now we're getting it. We're getting Koji Takeda versus Taksuke Kume. The lightweight division is very, very interesting at the moment, with all things considered. Tofik Musayev returning after his time in the war. He was a part of the Azerbaijan military briefly and doing his service there, mandatory, I believe it was, and now he is back and ready to fight again as soon as possible. Just a matter of making things happen logistically. Is that the proper word to use in terms of getting him to Japan and having things all safe and yada yada? So the winner of this fight, will be very close to a possible fight with him, but they will not be directly in line in the next person in line, because that's going to be the co-main event. Roberto Satoshi De Souza against Kazuki Tokudome. De Souza's already, got that Tofik fight in the palm of his hands. He's got it. He's risking it here in this matchup with Kazuki Tokudome, who is another former UFC fighter. Enjoyed a brief stint with the UFC. I believe went 500, 2-2 maybe. Spoke to him as well. Shameless plug. Big episode of Broad Horizon, episode 7 that I did. So yeah, this is a matchup where risk versus reward, very, very high risk for De Souza and low reward besides staying active. Big reward possibility for Tokudome. But yeah, if De Souza goes out there and wins, then yeah, that Tofik fight will happen as soon as it can, as I said. And then whoever wins between Takeda and Kume will be right behind him. You would imagine that if Tokudome wins, then he will be next in line to fight Musayev as well. It would only make sense. You're knocking off the guy who's set to fight him anyways. So yeah, that is pretty that's the most clear scenario or situation that will come out of this event, out of everything that I just listed off, you guys. That is a lock if all things go according to De Souza's plan. Let's put it that way. But then there's the main event. The main event, the super atomweight title fight. Ayaka Hamasaki, the GOAT. She's phenomenal. In the rematch, Kana Asakura. I don't know if there's really anywhere to go with this in terms of a map. They've both fought so many people in the division. Ayaka specifically could be winding down. So that, I guess, that is one thing to look at, is the possibility of Hamasaki's career coming to an end closer or more sooner rather than later, excuse me. But she, of course, could go on for as long as she wants at this point, because she is looking literally better than ever. And yeah, no signs of slowing down for her, but we'll see how it shakes out. You guys, of course, have to mention that phenomenal main event. So that is happening there. RIZIN 27, March 21st. Cannot miss it. All right, you guys, I think we will end it there, because as you can see, I'm getting bothered by a little freak here. Smudge making an appearance on the first episode of Drake's Takes on the Body Lock. It's kind of fitting. How fitting is that your resident hipster MMA show is featuring a guy with dyed blonde hair and his cat on his lap now. So we will leave it there, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the topics discussed today. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Let me know what you thought. If you like the idea of me rambling about all the nonsense going on in the not so mainstream part of MMA, and all the little things, that are kind of interesting in the grand scheme. So, nope, you do not rub on the microphone. So, yeah, I will see you next time. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. As Aunt Walker would say, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. We're doing good stuff over here at the Body Lock. Appreciate all the support, you guys. Hope you enjoy. Hope to see you next time. Don't know when that'll be, because this will be whenever I feel like it, because that's how this show works. And that is the whole point of it. It's how it started. We're going to keep it that way. So be on the ground for UFC 260 next week. And I will see you at some point after that, because it will not be then. So follow me at DrakeRiggs_ on Twitter for all your updates about anything you can possibly imagine, especially, just whatever I feel like, because I'm on E, you guys. So we'll wrap it there. Goodbye. We'll see you next time.